Now I'm reading from the text in here now. It says, God shows us that his purpose for the earth is not that people should suffer, not that evil should happen, or that people should be oppressed. He shows this in his law on how he wants us to give to the poor, to defend the cause of the needy, the foreigner, the fatherless, and the widow in our society. Now we have so many people that will ask the question that if God cares, why does evil happen in the world? And we say God cares, why does this happen? Okay. Why does that happen? Now, if we look in the nature of God, He's a giver, and his love in giving helps us to know that, his intention is not that evil should happen. When he created man, something happened after man fell. But in the course of him trying to solve the problem of the fall of man, he wanted to show that the evil is not his intention, and giving was part of what he actually used to show this. Now, in Jeremiah 22, verse 15 to 17 there, we're going to run very fast because of some of the scriptures there. Now, God sent Judah into exile simply because, when he called them aside, like he called us Christians aside today, he wanted them to do some things. Now, in this verse here, he was talking about some of the kings. He was talking about Shalom, who was one of the sons of Jehoiakim. When he was, sent to captivity, another of the sons replaced him, which was Jehoiakim. So, son of Josiah, Jehoiakim replaced him. Now, God sent Jeremiah to go to the palace and go and tell the king that if you will do this and do this and do this, that you will not go into captivity. But if you will not, that's the same way that Shalom went into captivity, you will go as well, and all Israel, that they will not cry for those who are dead. I'll read some of the scriptures that God said in there. Verse 15 says, "Shall thou reign because thou closest thyself in cedar? Did not thy father eat, drink, and do judgment and justice? And then it was well with him." He was talking about Josiah. "He judged the cause of the poor and needy. Then it was well with him. Was not this how to know me, saith the Lord? But thine eyes and thine heart are not but for thy covetousness, for to shed innocent blood, and for oppression and for violence to do it." Now, if we look in here, God's intention actually was that everybody in the kingdom that he called should not actually suffer. He wanted them to care for one another. As a nation, the leaders should care for those who are needy, those who are helpless, and those who are poor. Now, if you look on today actually, I think we've not been taught rightly about giving. I'm not talking about our church, but the fathers of Christianity, those who taught us that, we've not been taught rightly about giving. Because from the Judeo, religion, and when we moved over to Christianity, if you watch very well, the way they did it, everything had a purpose. Offering had a purpose. Tithe had a purpose. If I tell you that their offering was even more than the tithe that some of us pay, the offering that the Jews give is more than our tithe. Because everything had its place. But when the temple was destroyed, the way they were giving was different. But you see, if we start talking about some of all these things, it causes a lot of controversy, which currently, if you're watching some videos on YouTube, you will see that some of the Christian leaders are arguing about, oh, no. And some people are saying that that's not the way it was done in the Old Testament or in the Judaism. You're interpreting that wrongly, interpreting this wrongly. The bottom line is that we've not been taught rightly about giving. And then the church is beginning to have a problem. Also, giving shows that we are not united. If some church has a problem, other Christians will not really respond. If that church has some other branches, it is left to those other branches to either respond or leave them to be on their own. So, now, there's one thing God said in some of the verses mentioned in here. He mentioned that, when they don't take care of the needy, it's out of covetousness, which means he's talking about giving. You see, the world knows how to give much more than we do. The last teaching that, when Sister Jennifer did, he made mention of this, which was very, very true. In actual sense, the world gives much more than we do. If you look at this society, if there's any need, you see the charities, they're out there giving and doing this and that. But the churches don't actually do. We only just, on occasions, because we see them doing that as well, we just raise some funds and say, okay, let's do this. But if anything is happening to some of our Christians or this, we are not united to say we are actually responding. But we are only joining those charities that are doing it so that we join as well to do. But we're not doing as a member of a body of Christ that one of our members is suffering and we need to respond. Because why? We've not been taught rightly about giving. Now, we'll move on. Now, the text for this teaching actually is from the book of Acts 20, 33 to 35. And in verse 35, Paul said, I have showed you all things, how that so laboring, you also support the weak, and to remember the words of the Lord Jesus, and how he said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And when Paul said this, let's have a picture of the early church then. He was in, he was in Ephesus. I think he was in Ephesus here. But he traveled from that region. Ephesus is somewhere around today's Turkey. He moved from there when he had the revelation that, please come and help us in Macedonia. That's somewhere around the current day Greece. He moved some of the islands down. Some of the islands that were down in the lower part of that country. He moved there, he moved Athens, from Athens to Corinth, and he was moving around. Now, when Paul made mention of that it is more blessed to give than to receive, that he's talking from his experience. I'll read the scriptures in here now. I'll read from verse 33. In Acts 20, from verse 33. He said, I have coveted no man's silver or gold. We remember what God said to the king, that because they weren't, concerned about the needs of those who were, they weren't concerned about the needy. So they were actually oppressing them. And God said that what? They were doing it out of the covetousness of their eyes and of their hearts. Now, Paul was responding in his case here, and he made mention of the word. I have coveted no man's silver or gold or apparel. In verse 34, ye yourself know that these hands have ministered unto my necessities, and to them that were with me. Now, what Paul is saying here is that in the book of that Acts, in 1 Corinthians, in that 1 Corinthians 18, we'll go down there later. In 1 Corinthians 18, from verse 1 to 5, we will see that when Paul was moving around in Greece, he moved from Athens to Corinth, and then while he was there, we will see that Silas and Timothy came to join him. But before they came to join him, he was with Priscilla and Aquila. He met them in Corinth. Because the Roman emperor, they drove all the Jews that were in Rome to say they should leave. So they came to Corinth. Now, Paul came there as well. He met Priscilla and Aquila, and they were tent makers. They're like builders that we have today. So they were of the same trade. So Paul stayed with them. While he stayed with them, in Acts 18 verse 5, we will see that Priscilla and Aquila came to join him. They came from Macedonia. They came to join Paul there. So what Paul was saying here, he actually was working with his hands. And he was the one providing for the need of Priscilla and Aquila that were with him. And what he does is, during the week, he was working to take care of, not Priscilla and Aquila, Timothy and Silas. During the week, Paul goes to work. He builds house, he builds everything. Weekend, on Saturday, he goes to the temple. He continues to dispute, to try and reason with them concerning the scripture. It was more like an apologetic, trying to, reason with them concerning this and that, He does that during the weekend. But the money that he makes when he works, he was using it to take care of the living of those two that came to join him there. That's what he was actually explaining. That was why he said, let's move on there. He said, I have showed you how that so laboring, I'm reading verse 35 of Acts 20, you ought to support the weak and to remember the words of the Lord Jesus, how he said, it is more blessed to give than to receive. So, as a leader, as like a pastor of current day church that we have, as the founder of maybe, or some person who established the current church or some of the churches, while he was doing that, he actually, he was giving. He didn't depend actually on them. He was giving. So that's why he was saying to them that, I have not coveted any of your riches. I have not desired to say because you are driving wonderful cars or you have jets. So I must as well try and become somebody in a high level like you. So to get some of those riches. But no, instead, he was working and actually contributing to support those who are with him. Why was he doing this? He actually gave himself. He gave himself, and while he's going around within Corinth, trying to go around preaching in those places, he has to be running around because after he stays, is the temple he goes to. After he stays in this temple, trying to win converts. When he wins converts from the temple, because the temple, the Greeks, the Jews used to come there. When he wins converts from there, he continues to dispute, trying to convince them. When they don't listen, he will separate those believers from there. They will go to the house of someone. They continue there and they begin to grow as a church. But he was working, trying to increase the church. And then when the church begins to grow, he will move. He left Timothy and Silas. He moved back to Ephesus, somewhere in Turkey. And those ones came to join him there. So what he was saying actually, that it is blessed for us actually to have a mindset of contributing into the work of the Lord, into the work of God, by giving yourself, giving to the needs of people that are in the kingdom, supporting them to be able to stand, to be able to enter into the kingdom, and when they enter into the kingdom, to be able to continue in the kingdom as well. Now, that's Acts 18, 1 to 5. If we read that, I won't read that because of time, because it's part of what I've just said down about, Priscilla, Aquila, that Paul came to Corinth, he met Priscilla and Aquila, and then while he was there, because they were of the same trade, you can read it as I'm talking now. So, they were working together. Bible uses the word wrought. So, while they were working together, Timothy and Silas came to join him and all those bits. So, now, let's look at today. How did they give in the early church? Because concerning giving, there was a difference in the way they give and the way we give actually. And because we're not really united as a church now, there's a bit of a difference. And how can it really affect us? We'll look at that as we go on along. Now, they had the synagogue and they had the temple. There's what they take to the synagogue. There's what they take to the temple. In their own, in what God told them. There's what is meant to be given in the synagogue. There's what is meant to be given in the temple. And what was meant to be given in the temple had a purpose. Okay, but Let's leave the Old Testament one first. Let's come to the early church. When the church was established, what was it like when they were actually giving? They knew what it was to give in their own Judaic religion. But when they came out from among the Jews and they became a part of the church, how did they give? What can we learn from them? Now, persecution was greatest in Jerusalem, in the early days, because of where the Jews, where they were more concentrated, there was persecution. It was very difficult, for even the apostles. How many were they? There were 12. All of them stayed, except for Paul that God sent out. But all of them, they found it very difficult to actually even preach there. You know what happened? When James was beheaded, they took Peter, they were about to kill Peter, all of them ran away, they dispersed, and So there was a lot of persecution. And around that period, how would somebody who's just giving his life to Christ, and if people get to know that you are a Christian, you'll be arrested. You'll be thrown into the amphitheater, into the Colosseum, where the Romans used to, they have their fight with the gladiators, or where they put animals to fight with Christians and to kill them. So how can they come out and profess that I'm a Christian? Or how can they be walking? And when they are walking, somebody who they work with in their workplace will know that this person is a Christian. So it was very, very difficult for them. It was very difficult for them. How did they respond? How did other churches respond? Now in Acts 4:32, we realize that the early church in Jerusalem had to devise a means to be able to survive. They share all the resources that they had. Some will come, they will sell their things and bring it to the apostles. And then when they sell their house, they bring it to the apostles, and then the apostles will distribute to everyone that, because they were hiding, they were in secret, they were fellowshipping in secret. But to provide for the need of everyone, they will share all those things, because they had that oneness. And in Acts 4:32-34 as well, let me read that part. It says, I'm reading 32. And the multitude of them that believed were of one heart and of one soul. Neither said any of them that aught of things which he possessed was his own, but they had all things in common. So everything they had was in common. They gave, if my brother here doesn't have, they will give him. Because why? That brother cannot stand if he doesn't get help. So if Christ has won him, if that help did not come, he was going to fall out. So, and God is like, God is a businessman. Yes, he's not winning souls to lose them. And when he wins souls, he wants to keep them. And he wants those that he has won to support them so that they will not be lost as well. Now, we'll move on. They collected funds and established churches for the struggling church. In 1 Corinthians 16, 1-3, there, Paul actually has established the Corinth church. Then when he went to Corinth, he was talking to them that, as he told the church in Galatia, that they should as well collect funds for the churches which were in Jerusalem. All the collections that they were actually for the church in Jerusalem, because of they were actually they were going through persecution. They were going through, they couldn't survive, because if that help did not come. So let me read some of the scriptures in there. I'm going to read 1 Corinthians 16, 1-3. Now concerning the collection for the saints, as I have given order to the churches of Galatia, even so do ye. Upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay in store as God has prospered him, that there be no gathering when I come. And when I come, whomsoever ye shall approve by your letter, them will I send to bring your liberality unto Jerusalem. So they made collections for other believers. Now, also, they gave to support mission. You will find that in Philippians 4, 4 to 16. I'm going to read that as well. Now, notwithstanding, ye have well done, that ye did communicate with my affliction. Now, you Philippians know also that in the beginning of the gospel, when I departed from Macedonia, no church communicated with me as concerning giving and receiving, but ye only. For even in Thessalonica, ye sent once and gave unto my necessity. So he was talking here as well, how they supported him. This wasn't when he was in Corinth. When he was in Corinth, he worked by himself to support himself, to support Timothy, to support Silas. But some other churches also supported the mission. So they had one thing in mind. They were actually trying to win people for Christ. They had that common mind. And then they give to support those who are doing it. So they gave their gifts, their possession to support those who were actually trying to win souls for Christ. Now, but in our current church today, because the church is not really one, so it's really more of, denomination, some sect, they start, so that common something is not really there anymore. So it's that's why giving has changed. The focus actually, when they collected, the distribution was for the people that were suffering or that had need in the church. But it's a bit different now today. The contribution actually, for most, is either to have the best instruments in the church. This particular church, their own instrument is very good. Ours is going to be better. Or their building is beautiful. No, we have to make ours better than their one. So that when we stand and they show us on TV, our building will look and they will look and say, yes, the pastor with the best church now, with the best instrument, is this particular church. Or the choir that they are in their robe, the beautiful one, the most beautiful one is this particular church. So, and no wonder why, if you watch on YouTube, you see a lot of arguments going on within people and pastors in Africa, not only Nigeria. It's more of private jets now, and they're not doing like Paul, actually. I'm going to be honest with that. I'm going to be honest with that. But they just want to have more and more and more and more and more, I watched a video on YouTube about a woman whom a pastor called her out that she came that you should pray for her son. And the man said, have you brought the land that I asked you to bring? And she said, the man said, go, your son will die then. I'm not going to pray for him. And I watched it on YouTube. And the man said, yes, you will say that you know God. You know his address. Go and look for him now. He said that, yes. But you know his address. You say it's the pastor. He said that he's not wasting his anointing. That's what he said. That I'm not going to waste my anointing anymore. Gone are the days when I used to waste my anointing. So, I don't blame anybody. It's because of the way we have been taught. It's because of the way we have been taught. The Jews gave, their offering was more than our tithe. And people will argue these days, to be sincere with you, they will argue and say, they pay the tithe to the temple, not to the synagogue. They will argue that. But you see, somebody who gives to God, how much is the tithe? You're even meant to give more than your tithe. When we get to the Old Testament part, we'll see some things that God actually intends. Let's move on. Now, there are so many references to giving in the Old Testament. We can't look at all of them. We're just going to look at just some little places that God made mention of. In Deuteronomy 15, where Moses spoke to them about giving. Now, it's more like, don't just give simply because you just want to say, I have given. Give to actually establish someone. If you can go on the street, you can see someone you don't know. You can give him £1, to say, okay, take £1 to eat. Somebody will say, well, I have given. But you see, God actually weighs our heart much more. I can give £1 to somebody on the street, but they called me and said, this person, his son needs operation, and they need like maybe £500. Or because it's more than £1. Now, I will turn away and say no. And maybe I could have much savings, somebody that I'll be able to respond. But because it's not the £1 that I will just give or £2 that I will give on the street. I'll just turn my head and say, no, sorry. God weighs our heart much more. So, but you see, the purpose for the giving is actually to meet need. Not just to just give and say, just take. So in the Old Testament, in Deuteronomy 15:7, I'm going to open that scripture now. I'm coming. Okay. Now, it says, but if there are any poor Israel in your town, when you arrive in the land, the Lord your God is giving you, do not be hard-hearted or tight-fisted towards them. Instead, be generous and lend them whatever they need. Do not be mean-spirited and refuse someone a loan, because the year for canceling debt is close at hand. Yeah, we'll read some of those bits later. But what God actually is, when he brought them into the land, is that if somebody has need and you have to be able to borrow the person, if you borrow the person, if you cannot pay back within 7 years, it's a year of release. Release and let the person go. And God said, don't say simply because if I borrow him, he's not going to release. And when it comes to you and you have it, and you refuse and say no, eventually he will not pay me to 7 years, so I'm not going to give you. God said no, that they should not be hard-hearted towards them. And also, in the next verse there as well, in the verse 12, we see there that when somebody comes to serve, somebody comes as a servant to serve them, and then they have riches enough that when the person stays with them, works for them for this period, it was their brethren, not just everybody, that don't just send the person away. Establish that person so that the person too can be able to stand on his own. Don't send him, because when you were in Egypt, they did not send you away empty-handed, because you will have gone into that land with nothing. But they sent you away, gave you gold, silver, and so many things that you had, that you'll be able to stand on your own. So from all these things, we can see that God's intention is that people should not really suffer. I know we can't really solve the problem of the whole world, but picking one, responding to help one, actually, for the kingdom adds to it. So in our current day, in our current day giving now, the giving is more centered towards, not the people, but it's just centered towards structures. I'm not talking about our church. You understand? It's something from the top. Your church belongs to a particular, body. Every church belongs to a particular body. But they collect money and all these things to service some, not the people. Those up, the leaders, the founding leaders, those up among those, every structure, you have where the GOs and all those big, offices are there. And then you have the smaller ones where you have branches as smaller pastors in those branches, Those up, all the collection actually is not centered towards the people, And this actually is affecting people. So the giving shows that we're not really united as a church. And where could this really, really affect us, in the future? All of us do read this scripture in Matthew 25. Matthew 25. Can we open to that place? Matthew 25, verse 41 to 46. Okay. Now, let me read it. Then the king will turn to those on the left and say, away with you, cursed ones, into the eternal fire, prepared for the devil and his demons. For I was hungry, and you did not feed me. I was thirsty, you did not give me a drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me into your home. I was naked, and you did not give me clothing. I was sick and in prison. You did not visit me. Then they will reply, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry, thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and not help you? Notice one word there. They said, Lord, when did we ever see you? The unbelievers will not call Jesus Lord. They don't know him. The unbelievers will not call Jesus Lord. They don't know him. All right. Now, this scripture here is talking about the time when the Lord Jesus will come. When the Lord Jesus will come. Now, he said some will be on the right, some will be on the left. Now, let me explain what this scripture means. It's not conclusive, my explanation, but in the way that I understand, Now, when we talk of the book of Revelation or some prophecies for the future, they have timing. Now, the time mentioned in here, in Matthew 25, is the time whereby those who will go with the rapture, they've already gone. All right? They've gone. Some people are on earth. Some will be converted. Some were already converted, but because they weren't following God rightly, they were left behind. Now, that period, just the same way Jerusalem experienced persecution, Christians will experience persecution. We heard about that in the book of Revelation, where the Antichrist is going to, kill people. If you read Revelation chapter 14, I think verse 20, see they will kill them by beheading. And they're going to kill. Ever since the world has been created till it will end, there will never be a time like that time. That persecution is going to be very great. Now, if you read the Bible as well, the Bible says he will rule over a third of the earth, not the whole earth. But the regions where he will control, it will be very difficult for Christians to be able to live. So among those who will be left behind there, this place is talking about Christians whereby they will be in regions that are not really affected. And they have the power to be able to respond. But they would not. The same way that we do today. So we're not saying here that God is going to judge us based on because we give or we did not give. But what he is saying, I'm just trying to explain what this place is saying. With the timing, this is after the rapture. Because after the rapture, there will be people that will still populate the earth. So it is those ones that went into his right that will enter into the millennial kingdom with their physical flesh as human beings, that will repopulate the earth, that after the 1,000 years that the devil will come and still deceive people again. The Bible says that God will destroy all of them. Those are the physical ones that will enter into the kingdom there. But the bottom line we're saying here, I don't want to go into that much. What we're saying here is that what? These ones, God cast them away because why? They did not respond. They kept what they had. They did not respond to help other Christians. And Jesus said that since you did not do it for them, then you did not do it for me, because the unbelievers will not say Lord. And those who were to go for rapture, at that time, they were gone. So when he was talking to this, he wasn't talking to those who had gone for the rapture. Those were already gone. So, that makes us to, now need to just look at for ourselves that in our giving, are we really, what's the purpose? Are we just giving somebody is hungry for McDonald's, I just bring £1, just take and say, okay, somebody else will give you the remaining one, take. And somebody else is hungry for that, I just give him a take, somebody else will give you the remaining one. God actually wants us to, help establish someone more, the household of faith. I think the Bible made mention somewhere that particularly the household of faith, if there is a brother actually or not necessarily here, but some other areas where the people are having problems. It could be, you could have a brother back home or somewhere who is a Christian, who is struggling and calls and say, they need to do operation for my child, and he's been praying to God, and then he's been praying to God. And God puts it in the heart of a brother and says, help this person. And that person is looking at how I'm going to increase my I've bought one house, I'm saving money to buy the second and the third house. No. I don't have that kind of money. I can't, And that brother who is praying cries unto God and says that my wife or child died because I couldn't get the help, And then the person, some they could become offended with God. The same way, this forerunner of Christ, what's his name again? John the Baptist. He was offended when he was in prison, and he said to Christ that, are you the one that we're expecting? Because and Jesus said that, he said those who are not offended, that they are blessed. Some people could be offended in God because why? They wanted help, and the person that God is sent to say should go and help refused. Because why? He's covetous. And look at what Paul said, or what God said about that king. What he had was for his loss, how he may increase. Well, we know the story of the rich fool as well. When God expanded, his barn, I know what he said to himself. I'm going to build more barns. Like somebody wants to buy an extra house and buy another extra house again. While, people are coming to him that they have this need or that need, that he could help. But, no. This money is just for me to buy an extra, I want to buy an extra house. But he just refused to help. That's what the rich fool did. He just expanded the barn, built the barn and built it more and stored it up there. And there's people that were all over, that were dying or they were in souls on the street, hungry, that he could have taken some of it and said, okay, you take, just go and cook this. At least for that day, that will solve the problem of some of his fellow, either Christians or his fellow Jew of those days. So what we're learning from this today is that we can't solve the problem of the world, but we can always pick one among the households of faith. It's not everybody that will come to you and say that you can actually be able to respond to. But the one that God gives you the capacity to be able to do what you can. Do what you can. From my experience, I am very grateful to God. When I was looking for a job, before I went for the interview, I made a vow to God and said that, okay, I will establish someone who is in the kingdom, who has a need, that needs help, and I will establish the person. If you will give me this job, I will do this, that the person will be able to stand on, that will take me a long time to be able to put those things together. Believe you me, before I went for the interview, they told me that it looks like they already like you. When they were interviewing me, on the interview table, the guy was asking me that when you enter into the job, be careful of this manager. On the interview day, be careful of this manager. You have to be careful of this one. You have to be careful of that one. I knew I already had the job because every time they were asking me questions, we were just chatting. And they were telling me about, when you enter, be careful, you have to be careful of this people, you have to be careful of that people. And, truly, when we respond in these ways, when things change in the country, God will respond because He knows that if you are affected, you cannot be able to give to help people. There's so many scriptures that references about giving that He says that when you don't actually help, if you cry out to God, so He said He will not answer. But you can browse and look for. There's so many references to that. So let's just pray. Let's just pray. Let's pray.